They thought I was asleep upstairs. But I wasn't. I stood silently in the hallway, listening as my daughter-in-law, Jessica, planned my removal like I was nothing more than yesterday's trash. Her voice carried clearly from the kitchen below. "We'll kick him out right after Christmas," she whispered to my son, David. "Northridge Assisted Living has an opening on January 2nd, $2,400 a month, but we'll have his house money by then." David muttered something I couldn't quite make out. Jessica's reply, however, was sharp and unmistakable. "He's too senile to fight it. Besides, we deserve this after putting up with him for 6 months." I should have felt heartbroken, betrayed, but instead I smiled. You see, they had no idea what I'd been preparing for months. Subscribe if you believe respect should be earned, not demanded. Let me take you back to where it all began. 6 months ago, when my wife, Ellen, passed away. Ellen and I had been married for 43 years. She left this world on a quiet Tuesday morning in June, holding my hand in room 217 at Hartford General. Cancer took her in just 8 weeks, and with her went my purpose. David suggested I move in for a while. "Just until you get back on your feet, Dad," he said. Jessica gave a forced smile and nodded. They had plenty of space, a 4-bedroom colonial in West Hartford, the same house I'd secretly helped them afford for the past 2 years. But the problem started almost immediately. "Harold, you left the coffee pot on again," Jessica would announce loudly whenever guests were around. I hadn't. I'd given up coffee decades ago because it upset my stomach. Still, the neighbors heard her fake concern about my forgetfulness. At the Millbrook Country Club, she'd interrupt me mid-conversation. "Oh, Harold's having one of his confused days," she'd say, laughing like it was some kind of joke. The humiliation stung, but I stayed silent for David's sake. Later, I discovered her Facebook posts. Pictures, captions, and pity-seeking updates. Caring for elderly parents is so challenging. That's when I realized I wasn't living in their home. I was living in their story. When they start losing their independence, it breaks your heart. Elder care, family first. #blessed, Jessica posted. The comments flooded in. "You're such a saint, Jessica. So hard when they become a burden. Have you thought about professional care?" Jessica soaked up every sympathy-filled word like sunlight. Meanwhile, David could barely look me in the eye. My own son, the boy I'd taught to throw a baseball and change a tire, stared at his plate during dinner, pretending not to notice me. Whenever I tried to tell stories from his childhood, he'd glance at his phone. When I offered to help with the yard work, he'd mutter something about insurance liability. They were slowly erasing me while I was still alive, sitting under their roof. But here's what they didn't know. Every Tuesday at 10 a.m., I drove my old 1987 Buick LeSabre to downtown Hartford, not to the senior center like I told them, but to the law offices of Carter, Patterson, and Associates. Benjamin Carter, my attorney, had been handling my affairs since Ellen's diagnosis. A sharp man in his 50s, he understood the quiet art of discretion. He knew exactly how much I was worth, and more importantly, how to keep it that way. "Harold," he'd said at our first meeting after Ellen's funeral, "your portfolio has grown significantly since we restructured it in 2020. Between the electronics business sale and your investments, your net worth is approximately $3.2 million. I simply nodded. Ellen, and I had always lived modestly by choice. She preferred her little Honda Civic over fancy cars. I still wore the same Timex watch I bought in 1995, and together, we donated quietly to the Children's Hospital where she volunteered every Thursday for 15 years. "My family thinks I'm nearly broke," I told Carter once. "They assume the house is mortgaged and I'm living off Social Security. Should we correct that assumption?" "Not yet," I said with a smile. "Let's see what they do with it." Carter understood immediately. He'd seen plenty of families fall apart over inheritance. We set up everything through offshore accounts. Perfectly legal, with a clean paper trail when the time came. Over the following months, I kept paying David's mortgage quietly, $860 every month, and Jessica's BMW lease another $430. They thought I was the burden. But the truth was, they were living off me. Her country club membership, $1,200 a month. David's business loan payments, $600 every week. They believe their comfortable lifestyle came from David's modest middle management job at the insurance company, a salary of $58,000 a year before taxes. The math didn't add up, but they never questioned their good fortune. Jessica's spending kept growing. A $3,400 Louis Vuitton purse for her birthday. Weekly spa treatments at $200 each. Designer workout clothes she'd wear twice before buying new ones. I watched everything and documented it all. Every receipt, every credit card statement that arrived in the mail, every careless conversation where she bragged about prices. Carter's assistant organized everything into a detailed financial report. During one meeting in October, Benjamin Carter looked across his desk at me and said, "Harold, you've subsidized their lifestyle to the tune of $127,000 since Ellen's passing. Are you comfortable letting this continue?" I turned to the window, gazing at the Hartford skyline. The autumn leaves were turning gold and red, the same way they had for the 68 years I called Connecticut home. "Benjamin," I said quietly, "have you ever watched someone dig their own grave?" He gave a knowing smile. "I've represented several clients who've had that experience. How deep should I let them go?" "That," I replied, "depends on how permanent you want the lesson to be." That was the moment I realized this wasn't about money anymore. It was about dignity. Ellen's dignity. My dignity. The values we'd spent more than 40 years building together. Then, 3 days later, the call that changed everything came. November 28th, 2:47 p.m. I was sitting in my chair, reading, when Jessica's phone rang in the kitchen. She answered in that sweet, fake tone she used whenever she wanted to impress someone. "Oh, hi, Karen. How are the wedding plans coming along?" I should probably mention, I've been recording our conversations for the past 3 weeks. Technically, that's not legally admissible in Connecticut without consent. But Benjamin Carter had explained something interesting to me. While those recordings couldn't be used as evidence, they could be used to refresh one's memory during testimony. And they were excellent for showing patterns of behavior to family court judges. My iPhone 14 Pro sat hidden behind a cookbook on the kitchen counter, quietly recording everything. "The venue looks amazing," Jessica continued on the phone. "Yes, we're still planning to attend. Though honestly, I'm not sure we can bring Harold. He's been having more episodes lately." Episodes? I'd never had a medical episode in my life. My last checkup with Dr. Sarah Martinez showed perfect health. Blood pressure 120/80, cholesterol levels better than most 50-year-olds, and a cognitive test score of 30 out of 30. "Actually, Karen," Jessica went on, "I'm glad you called. I need to vent about something." Here it comes, I thought. Harold's becoming impossible to manage. David won't admit it, but the man is costing us a fortune. The utility bills have doubled since he moved in. He leaves the lights on, runs the heat constantly. Yesterday, I found him standing in the kitchen at 3 a.m., just staring at the refrigerator. I'd gotten up for water once, in 6 months. "The worst part," Jessica continued, "is how he interferes with our routine. David, and I can't even have a normal conversation without Harold shuffling in with some story about the old days. It's like having a child who never learned boundaries." My hands clenched involuntarily. Ellen used to say I had the best stories of anyone she knew. 40 years of marriage, military service in Korea, building a business from nothing. Those weren't just stories. They were a life, a legacy. "Honestly, Karen," Jessica sighed, "he's become dead weight. Just this morning, he asked if he could help with Christmas dinner. I had to explain very patiently that modern cooking is too complicated for someone his age. He looked so hurt, but what was I supposed to do? Let him burn the house down? All I'd done was offer to make my famous stuffing, Ellen's recipe, the one everyone had requested at every family gathering for 20 years. "The money situation's the real problem, though," she continued. "David's too loyal to admit it, but Harold's bleeding us dry. His medications alone cost $400 a month. The extra food, heating bills, car insurance of that ancient Buick, it all adds up fast. Medications, $40 a month. generic blood pressure pills. Everything else, she said, was a lie. We've been researching assisted living facilities, Jessica said finally. There's a nice place called Northridge. They specialize in memory care. $2,400 a month, but they handle everything, meals, medical supervision, activities. And there it was. Their plan, laid out word for word, captured, recorded, and stored. Harold will be much happier there, with people his own age, Jessica said. Memory care. For a man who balanced his checkbook for 50 years and could recite every Boston Red Sox batting average since 1978, the timing couldn't be better. We'll have the conversation right after Christmas. Give him the holidays. Then transition him in January. Northridge has an opening on January 2nd. Her voice lowered to a conspiratorial whisper. Between you and me, Karen, I think David's finally ready to admit his father needs professional care. Yesterday, Harold couldn't even find his reading glasses. They were on his head the whole time. I touched the reading glasses that hung from the chain around my neck. Same spot for 15 years. Jessica went on. The inheritance should cover it. David's been handling his finances since Ellen died. There's enough equity in the house for several years of care. Harold's too senile to understand the paperwork anyway. He just signs whatever David puts in front of him. Their words felt like a verdict. I know it sounds harsh, Jessica finished, but Harold's had his time. David and I have our whole lives ahead of us. We can't spend the next decade being unpaid caregivers. Her final confession, that their dreams were funded by my secret support, landed like a blow. She thanked Karen for listening and hung up. I sat in my chair for exactly 10 minutes, absorbing everything. Then I smiled, not the defeated smile of an old man, but the small, steady smile of someone who just watched his opponent lay out their entire strategy. I picked up the phone and called Benjamin Carter. Benjamin, it's Harold. Cancel our meeting for next Tuesday. We need to meet today and bring that charity donation paperwork we discussed. All of it. Harold, is everything all right? He asked. Everything's perfect. When Jessica's words crossed that line, I knew it was time to act. Carter's office smelled of leather and old money. Heavy oak, law books stacked to the ceiling. The kind of room where million-dollar decisions were made over handshakes and single malt whiskey. I sat opposite his mahogany desk at 4:30 that afternoon, my iPhone still holding Jessica's recorded confession. After he listened, Benjamin spoke slowly. This changes our legal position significantly. Conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud, false representation to financial institutions. He paused and added, I don't want to prosecute them. And what do you want? I asked. He leaned back, the practiced calm of a man who'd inherited one of Hartford's most prestigious firms. Tell me what you're thinking. Ellen had volunteered at Hartford Children's Hospital for 15 years. Every Thursday she read to children with cancer. She always said those kids taught her what real courage looked like. Now the hospital was building a new pediatric wing, and they needed funding. Benjamin's eyes sharpened. How much? He asked. All of it, I said. Silence filled the room. Outside the window, Hartford hummed with afternoon traffic. Ordinary people going home to ordinary families who didn't plot each other's ruin over Thanksgiving phone calls. Harold, are you saying you want to donate your entire estate? Benjamin asked. $3.2 million, minus legal fees and moving expenses. Every penny to the children's hospital. My family gets nothing. Absolutely nothing. Benjamin opened his laptop and began to type. This is legally complex but feasible. You must understand the ramifications. Your son and daughter-in-law will be financially devastated, he warned. Without your subsidies, they can't keep their lifestyle. They'll lose the house, the cars. David could default on his business loan. Good, I said. Benjamin, my son spent 6 months watching his wife humiliate me and plan my institutionalization to steal my inheritance. He stood by while she called me dead weight, said I was too senile to understand paperwork. I rose and walked to a window. In the distance, I could see Hartford Children's Hospital, a bright, proud building where Ellen had found her purpose. She believed children deserve better than the world adults often give them. She would understand this decision. What about David? Benjamin asked. Despite everything, he's still my son. I turned back to him. But David made his choice when he picked Jessica's contempt over his father's dignity. Actions have consequences. It's time he learned that lesson. Benjamin pulled out a thick folder. I'll need several signatures, and we'll have to move quickly. If you're serious, we should finish before Christmas. How quickly? I asked. I can have the charity paperwork ready by tomorrow, he said. The house sale is trickier. We'll need a private buyer who can close fast and pay cash. You have someone in mind? I asked. St. Mary's Development Corporation, Benjamin replied. They purchase homes for affordable housing projects. Good people, fast closers, and they pay fair market value. I nodded slowly. I was about to make a decision that would destroy my son and daughter-in-law financially. Set it up. I want the house sold by January 2nd. That's only 5 weeks, Harold. Are you absolutely certain? I thought of Jessica's voice on that recording. Dead weight. Too senile to fight it. We deserve this. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Benjamin opened his filing cabinet and began pulling out documents. We'll need to structure this carefully. First, we'll establish the charitable trust. Then we'll transfer all assets into it. Finally, we'll arrange a home sale, with occupancy ending January 2nd. What about me? I asked. Where will I live? Hartford has several excellent senior communities, he said. I'd recommend Sunset Manor. It's just 3 miles from the Children's Hospital. You could volunteer there if you'd like. I smiled faintly. Ellen would like that, I thought. Full circle. One more thing, Benjamin, I said. I don't want this done quietly. No secrets, no private signing. I want the entire family to witness the donation. Benjamin looked up, surprised. That's unusual. Christmas Day, I said, after dinner, with everyone present. A slow smile spread across his face. In 30 years of practice, he said, I've never handled a case quite like this. You want them to watch you give away their inheritance. I want them to understand something, I replied. Respect isn't inherited. It's earned every single day. We worked until 7 p.m. that night, signing documents, transferring accounts, setting up the trust. $3.2 million redirected from greedy relatives to sick children. As I stood to leave, Benjamin asked softly, Harold, are you prepared for their reaction? This will devastate them. I paused at the door. Benjamin, do you know what's truly devastating? Spending your golden years, watching your own family plan your disposal. After that, everything else is just paperwork. Christmas morning, I had one final surprise waiting. December 1st arrived gray and cold. Typical New England winter. I woke early, made my tea, and drove to Hartford First Bank. It was time to test the waters. The bank manager, Mrs. Patricia Williams, had known me for 23 years. She'd handled Ellen's and my mortgage, business loans, and investments. When I stepped into her office at 9 a.m., she greeted me warmly. Harold, how are you holding up, dear? Getting by, Patricia. I need to make some changes to my automatic payments. Of course, she said. What would you like to change? I handed her a handwritten list. Cancel the monthly transfers to David's mortgage account and stop the payments for the BMW lease and the country club membership. Her fingers froze above the keyboard. Harold, those are substantial payments. Are you sure? Completely sure. She pulled up the accounts. Let's see mortgage payment, $860 a month. BMW lease, $430. Country club, $1,200. That's nearly $2,500 in monthly support. Patricia said softly. I'm aware of the amounts, I replied. She hesitated. May I ask why you're canceling them? If there's a financial hardship, we could explore some restructuring. No hardship, Patricia. I'm just done paying for people who don't appreciate it. She studied me carefully. After 23 years in banking, Patricia had seen enough family dramas to recognize the look of a man reaching his limit. When would you like these changes to take effect? She asked. Immediately. That means David's December mortgage payment will bounce when it auto-drafts tomorrow. Are you prepared for that? I smiled faintly. I'm counting on it. Patricia processed cancellations without another word. 2 decades of professional trust earned her silence. Harold, she said quietly, if you don't mind me saying, you seem different today, more determined. I met her eyes. Patricia, have you ever watched someone mistake your kindness for weakness? She sighed. Unfortunately, yes. What did you do about it? A knowing smile crossed her face. I stopped being kind to them. Exactly, I said, standing to leave. When I got home, Jessica was in the kitchen, planning her day. She wore workout clothes that probably cost more than most people's monthly grocery bill. Lululemon leggings, $128. Matching sports bra, $68. Designer sneakers, $240. All paid for with money she believed came from David's hard-earned salary. Morning, Harold, she said casually. David left early for work. Some crisis at the office. No crisis yet, I thought, but there will be tomorrow when his mortgage payment bounces. Jessica, I said gently, I was thinking about Christmas dinner. Would you like me to make my stuffing? Ellen's recipe. She laughed, a dismissive, practiced sound. Oh, Harold, that's sweet, but I've already ordered everything from Williams-Sonoma. Much easier than cooking from scratch. Williams-Sonoma. Catering for 12. Roughly $800. Money she assumed David earned. Of course, I said quietly. Silly of me to suggest, I said. It's not silly, Harold, Jessica replied smoothly. It's just that modern entertaining requires professional presentation. Our friends expect a certain standard. Her friends, the ones who worked at marketing firms and law offices, who drove German cars and vacationed in the Hamptons. People who would never associate with the family of a mid-level insurance adjuster if they knew David's real income. I understand completely, I said. That afternoon, my phone rang. David's voice was tight, panicked. Dad, I just got a call from the bank. They said my mortgage payment was rejected for insufficient funds. That's impossible. The automatic transfer from your account should have covered it. Oh, dear, I said, letting my voice wobble with feigned confusion. I may have made a mistake at the bank this morning. You know how those computers confuse me. What kind of mistake? Well, I was checking my balance, and the nice lady asked me about automatic payments. I might have told her to cancel something. My memory is what it used to be. There was a long pause. I could practically hear David's blood pressure rising through the phone. Dad, that automatic payment covers our mortgage. If it bounces, we'll get hit with fees, and it'll hurt our credit score. I'm so sorry, son. Can you fix it? I'll figure something out. Don't worry about it. But I could hear the worry tightening his voice. Losing $2,500 in monthly support would crush their finances. David's actual salary couldn't sustain their lifestyle. That evening, dinner was unusually quiet. Jessica didn't chatter about her day or list tomorrow's plans. David picked his food, distracted and tense. Finally, Jessica spoke. Harold, she said, her tone sweet but sharp at the edges, David mentioned you had some confusion at the bank today. Did I? I asked, feigning innocence. My memory's been a bit foggy lately. You canceled some automatic payments by accident, she said carefully. I put on my most bewildered expression. Oh my, that'd sound like something I do. These old brains aren't very reliable. David shot her a warning look, but she ignored it. The thing is, Harold, she continued, some of those payments are important. Things for the house, the cars, adult responsibilities that need to stay current. Adult responsibilities, I repeated. Of course. Should I go back to the bank tomorrow? I think that would be best, she said quickly. Maybe David should drive you, help you sort things out. David shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. Dad, he said finally, maybe it would be easier if you just gave me power of attorney over your accounts. Then these mistakes wouldn't happen. There it was. The real agenda, Jessica's pressure campaign, was ahead of schedule. Power of attorney? I said softly. That sounds very official. It's just paperwork, Dad, David replied. I'd handle all the banking, so you wouldn't have to worry about it, David said gently. I paused, pretending to consider the offer with care. Let me think about it, son. It's a big decision. Of course. No pressure, he replied. After dinner, I heard them whispering in the kitchen. He's getting worse, Jessica hissed. Did you see how confused he was about the bank? This is exactly what I mean. He's too senile to manage money. Maybe we should move faster on the nursing home plan. Definitely, David agreed quietly. I'll call Northridge tomorrow, see if they can take him before January. I smiled in the darkness of my room. Let them accelerate their plan. Benjamin Carter was already 3 steps ahead of them, and every move they made only dug their hole deeper. Is Harold really losing his mind, or is he just playing chess? That question would be answered soon enough. December 15th, the Millbrook Country Club's annual Christmas party. I'd been a member there for 12 years, back when I could afford the $1,200 monthly dues. Now Jessica paid them, using money she believed came from David's salary, parading around like the queen of Connecticut society. The party was as elegant as ever. White tablecloth, crystal champagne flutes, a string quartet performing classical renditions of Christmas carols. The kind of evening where Hartford's upper-middle class gather to see and be seen. Jessica was radiant in a black cocktail dress that easily cost $600, her wrist adorned with Cartier watch, an early Christmas gift to herself, worth $8,500 of David's money. I wore my best navy blue suit, the one Ellen had bought me for our 40th anniversary back in 1998. Still fit perfectly. Harold, a warm voice greeted me. It was Margaret Wilson. She and her husband Frank lived 3 houses down. Good people. They brought casseroles after Ellen's funeral and checked in on me more than my own family did. Margaret, you look lovely tonight, I said, smiling. Thank you, dear. How are you adjusting to living with David and Jessica? Before I could respond, Jessica appeared beside me like a perfectly styled storm cloud. Oh, Margaret, she began with her polished social tone. It's been challenging but rewarding. Harold's been having some difficulties lately, haven't you, Harold? Margaret's polite smile faltered. Difficulties? Memory issues, mostly. Jessica said smoothly. Just yesterday, he got confused at the bank and accidentally canceled some important payments. We're looking into professional care options. I watched Margaret's expression shift. She knew me too well. My mind was sharp, my memory clear. Professional care, she repeated quietly. Harold, you seem perfectly fine to me, Margaret said. Jessica's smile tightened. Well, early-stage dementia can be very deceiving. The person might appear normal in public, but their day-to-day functioning becomes problematic. I see, Margaret replied. That was my cue. Time to plant the first seeds. Margaret, I said calmly, how long have you known me? Oh, at least 15 years, since you and Ellen moved into the neighborhood. In those 15 years, have I ever seemed confused or forgetful to you? Margaret paused, thinking carefully. Never. If anything, you have one of the sharpest memories I've ever seen. You remember everyone's birthdays, anniversaries, even the names of their grandchildren. Just last month, you helped Frank fix his lawn mower. You knew exactly which part he needed to order. Jessica's jaw tightened. Like I said, early-stage symptoms can come and go. Jessica, I interrupted gently. Could you refresh my memory about my military service? She blinked, caught off guard. I what? My military service. I repeated, since my memory is apparently failing. Perhaps you could tell Margaret about my time in Korea. Jessica's face went blank. After 6 months of living under my roof, she hadn't even bothered to learn the most basic facts about my life. Harold served in Korea, she said vaguely. Which unit? I asked. Silence. Which years? More silence. What rank did I achieve? Jessica looked trapped, her lips tightening as Margaret watched the exchange with growing interest. Margaret, I said, I served with the 2nd Infantry Division from 1951 to 1953. I was a staff sergeant, earned a Purple Heart at Heartbreak Ridge, then came home and used a GI Bill to earn an electrical engineering degree at UConn. I remember Ellen mentioning that. Margaret said softly, she was so proud of you. I received that Purple Heart for carrying 2 wounded soldiers to safety under enemy fire. Does that sound like the behavior of someone with a failing mind? Margaret's eyes narrowed as she turned toward Jessica. No, Harold. It sounds like the behavior of someone with exceptional courage and mental clarity. Jessica's face flushed red. I need to find David, she muttered, and hurried away. Margaret moved closer. Harold, is everything all right at home? I smiled faintly. Margaret, family relationships can be complicated, but don't worry about me. I'm taking care of myself. If you need anything, you just call me, she said firmly. Thank you, I replied. That means more than you know. Margaret squeezed my hand. Ellen raised a good son in David. But even good people can make bad choices. Would Harold crack under pressure? Not tonight. Tonight, he was quietly building an army of witnesses. The next morning, Jessica launched her social media campaign. I discovered it by accident. Tuesday, December 16th. I was using David's laptop to check my email when a Facebook notification popped up. Jessica had tagged him in a post. The hardest part about caring for aging parents is knowing when they need more help than family can provide. Harold has been having increasing memory lapses and confusion episodes. Yesterday, at a social event, he became defensive when I tried to explain his condition to a friend. It's heartbreaking to watch someone you love struggle with cognitive decline. Prayers appreciated as we navigate this difficult transition. Jessica's post had 63 likes and 47 comments within just 12 hours. So, sorry you're going through this. My mom went through the same thing. You're a saint for taking care of him. Sending prayers. Have you looked into memory care facilities? My dad thrived once he got professional help. It's so hard when they don't recognize they need it. Stay strong. Each comment twisted the knife deeper into her carefully fabricated narrative. I took screenshot of everything and emailed them straight to Benjamin Carter. But Jessica was only getting started. Over the next week, her Facebook page turned into a daily documentary of my so-called decline. December 17th. Harold asked me 3 times today what day it was. The doctor says repetitive questions are an early symptom. Grateful for David's patience during this difficult time. December 18th. Found Harold standing in the kitchen at 2 a.m., confused about why he was there. Sleep disruption is another red flag. Researching overnight care options. December 19th. Harold got aggressive when I suggested he shouldn't drive anymore. This is the hardest part, when they lash out at people trying to help. Praying for wisdom. Each post was a masterpiece of manipulation. Jessica had studied eldercare exploitation like it was a doctoral thesis, perfecting the art of public sympathy and private cruelty. The comments flooded in advice, compassion, validation, all feeding her false narrative. She was building a public record of my incompetence, laying the groundwork for legal guardianship. I called Benjamin Carter. Harold, he said, this is actually helpful for our case. She's documenting her deception in real time. How is that helpful? She's destroying my reputation. Because I've been busy too, Benjamin replied. Dr. Sarah Martinez finished your full cognitive assessment yesterday. You scored perfectly: memory, reasoning, spatial awareness, problem solving. Her report literally says he has the mental acuity of someone 30 years younger. I felt a flicker of relief. What about witnesses? We've got them, Benjamin said. Pastor Williams has agreed to document his visits with you. Margaret Wilson submitted a written statement about the country club incident. Her husband Frank confirmed you repaired his lawnmower last month, diagnosed a complex carburetor issue in 15 minutes. A wave of gratitude washed over me. For neighbors who actually noticed the truth. Benjamin, I said quietly, there's something else. I want to accelerate our timeline. How accelerated? Christmas Day. I want everything completed by Christmas Day. Harold, that's 9 days. The house sale alone. Can St. Mary's development close that fast if we lower the price? Benjamin paused. Probably. They're motivated buyers with cash reserves. But why the rush? Because Jessica's trying to move me to Northridge before January. I overheard her yesterday, calling to expedite my admission. She can't legally force you into assisted living without guardianship, Benjamin said. She's building a case, social media posts, fake witnesses, medical concerns. In Connecticut, she only needs 2 physicians to declare me incompetent. Benjamin's tone hardened. Do you think she'll find 2? She will. By Christmas. Money talks. Then we move faster, he said. I'll contact St. Mary's today. See if they can close by December 23rd. That gives us Christmas Eve to finalize the charity transfer. And the donation ceremony? Christmas Day, after dinner. Your family will witness everything. Perfect. That evening, Jessica cornered me in the living room. Harold, I scheduled a doctor's appointment for you tomorrow, she said smoothly. Dr. Richardson. He specializes in geriatric medicine. Dr. Richardson? I asked. Not Dr. Martinez? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Dr. Martinez had known me for 15 years and had long documented my perfect health. This new Dr. Jessica mentioned would rely entirely on her version of events. That's thoughtful, I said slowly. Jessica, is something wrong? Just a routine follow-up, she replied smoothly. After Ellen's passing, we want to make sure you're handling the stress well. Of course. David and I have been discussing your future, she continued. We think it might be time to consider assisted living. Not immediately, but soon. I appreciate your concern. She smiled faintly. Northridge has a beautiful facility. They specialize in memory care. A very gentle approach. You make friends your own age. It sounds lovely, I said. Jessica's smile widened, triumphant. In her mind, she'd already won. The confused old man had finally accepted his fate, but she had no idea what was coming next. December 22nd. Benjamin Carter's office looked like a war room. Documents spread across every surface. Bank statements, medical records, legal filings, printed social media posts. 6 months of investigation, laid out in meticulous detail. Let's review the evidence one last time before tomorrow's donation ceremony, Benjamin said, adjusting his glasses. He opened a thick binder labeled Davis Family Financial Analysis. Category 1, Financial Exploitation. You provided $127,000 in secret financial support since June, he said. Here's the breakdown. Mortgage payments, $51,600. Car lease, $25,800. Country club membership, $36,000. Miscellaneous expenses, $13,600. The numbers were staggering when seen together. I had funded their entire lifestyle for 6 months. Benjamin turned another page. Now, Jessica's personal spending during the same period. Luxury handbags, $12,000. Jewelry, $21,000. Spa treatments, $8,400. Designer clothing, $15,300. He looked up. A total of $56,700 in non-essential purchases, all while she claimed you were a financial burden. I nodded grimly. Exactly. Category 2, defamation and character assassination. Benjamin flipped through another folder. We've collected screenshots of 43 Facebook posts, all containing false medical claims, forged quotes from doctors, and fabricated incidents of confusion or aggression. Jessica even posted things you never saw yourself. He slid a printout toward me. She claimed Dr. Martinez diagnosed you with early-stage Alzheimer's. Benjamin read aloud from the actual report. Patient demonstrates exceptional cognitive function, superior memory retention, and mental acuity consistent with individual decades younger. I exhaled sharply. What about the so-called witnesses on social media? We documented 162 comments from Jessica's friends supporting her false narrative. However, we also have written statements from 12 people who see you regularly. Neighbors, your barber, your pharmacist, Pastor Williams, all confirming your mental clarity. Benjamin opened yet another folder. Category 3, Conspiracy and Elder Abuse. He tapped on a transcript. The recorded conversation from November 28th shows clear intent to defraud. Jessica openly discussed institutionalizing you for financial gain, called you too senile to understand paperwork, and even talked about manipulating your inheritance. Is that recording admissible in court? I asked. Yes, Benjamin said firmly. Connecticut allows one-party consent recordings when elder abuse is suspected. He flipped another page. Northridge also confirmed Jessica inquired about involuntary commitment procedures. She specifically asked if they could expedite admission for patients deemed incompetent by family members. My hands clenched involuntarily. Even knowing what she was capable of, the precision of her betrayal was breathtaking. "Benjamin," I asked quietly, "am I being vindictive? Is this revenge or justice?" He studied me for a long moment before answering. "Harold, in 30 years of practice, I've handled countless inheritance disputes. Usually, they're about greedy children fighting over what's left after their parents die." He leaned forward. "This case is different." "How?" "Jessica and David tried to steal your inheritance while you were still alive. They plotted to institutionalize you based on fake medical evidence. They spent 6 months psychologically abusing you under your own roof." Benjamin reached for a thick legal volume and opened it to a bookmark section. Under Connecticut law, he read, "Elder abuse includes willful infliction of mental or physical harm, unreasonable confinement, willful deprivation of services necessary for health, financial exploitation." He looked up. "Jessica has committed all 4. What happens if we press criminal charges?" I asked. "Felony elder abuse carries 5 to 20 years in prison." Benjamin said. "Financial exploitation adds another 10. Conspiracy could extend that even further. But we're not going that route." "No," I said quietly. "We're choosing restorative justice instead." Benjamin nodded. "Exactly. The charity donation removes their incentive for future abuse and turns their greed into something good." He closed the binder and looked me straight in the eyes. "Harold," he said softly, "what you're doing tomorrow is a revenge. It's justice. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" I asked quietly. Benjamin leaned back, his expression calm but firm. "Revenge seeks to hurt those who wronged you. Justice seeks to prevent them from wronging others." I let that sink in. The distinction was sharp and simple, and it changed everything. "By donating my estate to the Children's Hospital," I said slowly, "I'm not just cutting them off. I'm preventing David and Jessica from ever profiting off elder abuse." "Exactly," Benjamin replied. "And in doing so, you're funding medical care for children who genuinely need help, not manipulative adults chasing unearned wealth." "What happens after tomorrow?" I asked. "David and Jessica will face the immediate financial fallout," Benjamin said. "Without your hidden support, they'll lose the house, the cars, the country club membership. David's business loan will default. They'll experience the same insecurity they tried to force on you." He closed the folder and continued, "Legally, you'll be protected by the charity trust. Once the donation is finalized, they can't contest it. They have no claim to any assets you rightfully own." Benjamin gathered the evidence files into his briefcase, then looked at me over his glasses. "Harold, tomorrow you'll have 12 family members witnessing the ceremony. Are you ready for their reactions?" I smiled, cold and deliberate. "Benjamin, I've been ready since the night I overheard Jessica plotting to get rid of me." He nodded, understanding the gravity of what was coming. What was Harold's smoking gun? They would find out soon enough. Christmas Day, 2024, 2:30 p.m. 12 family members gathered around Ellen's dining room table, the same table where we'd shared holidays for 40 years. They believed it would be my last Christmas in my own home. Ironically, they were right, just not for the reasons they expected. David's sister, Rachel, had driven up from New York with her husband, Tom, and their twin boys. David's cousin, Mark, arrived with his wife, Susan, and their teenage daughter, Emily. Jessica's parents, Robert and Linda Miller, had flown in from Florida, and at the head of the table sat Pastor Williams, a guest I'd invited that very morning. To Jessica's surprise, Jessica had spared no expense. Williams Sonoma catering for 12, bone china, crystal glasses, every dish presented with professional precision. To anyone else, it looked like a picture-perfect family Christmas. But for Jessica and David, it was about to become the last supper of their deception. $800 worth of catered food, all paid for with money Jessica believed came from David's salary. She made sure everyone noticed her Cartier watch, flashing it whenever she lifted her champagne glass. Her sparkling badge of deception. David sat beside her, tense and silent, performing his usual role as the quiet observer who never dared to challenge her. Then, as dessert plates were cleared, Jessica cleared her throat dramatically. "Harold," she began with a polished smile, "David and I have some exciting news to share with the family." "Here it comes," I thought. "We found, Harold, a wonderful new living arrangement," she continued sweetly. "Northridge Assisted Living has an opening in their memory care unit, and we think you'll be much happier there, with professional supervision." Rachel nearly choked on her wine. Memory care? Dad seems perfectly fine to me. Jessica didn't miss a beat. "Oh, he hides it well in social situations," she said smoothly. "But his day-to-day functioning has become challenging. Haven't you noticed how quiet he's been today?" "Quiet, yes, because I've been savoring this moment. The transition will happen next week," David added, his voice tight. "Northridge has excellent facilities, and Dad will receive the specialized care he needs." Pastor Williams frowned. "Harold," he said gently, "do you feel you need specialized care?" I turned toward him calmly. "Pastor Williams," I said, "before I answer that, I'd like to share something with everyone." Slowly, I stood and walked to the sideboard, retrieving a large manila envelope Benjamin Carter had delivered that morning. "Jessica," I said, "you mentioned I'm too senile to understand paperwork. Let's test that theory." I withdrew the first document. "This is a comprehensive cognitive assessment from Dr. Sarah Martinez, dated December 20th. Would you like me to read the results?" Jessica's face turned pale. "Harold, this isn't the time." "Patient demonstrates exceptional cognitive function." I read clearly. "Superior memory retention and mental acuity consistent with someone decades younger. No evidence of dementia, Alzheimer's, or any cognitive impairment. Patient scored 30 out of 30 on all standardized tests." The room fell silent. "That's odd, Jessica," I said softly, "because on Facebook, you told your friends that Dr. Martinez diagnosed me with early-stage Alzheimer's. So, were you confused or were you lying?" "There must be some mistake," she stammered. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. "Let's refresh everyone's memory about your plans for my future." I pressed play. Jessica's voice filled the dining room, crystal clear, recorded on November 28th. "We'll kick him out right after Christmas. Northridge has an opening January 2nd. He's too senile to fight it. We deserve this after putting up with him for 6 months. Harold's costing us a fortune. He's dead weight. The inheritance should help with costs. He's too senile to understand the paperwork anyway." The recording lasted 3 agonizing minutes. Every word was a dagger. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Rachel's face twisted in disbelief. "David, you knew about this?" David couldn't meet her eyes. "It's not what it sounds like." "Really?" I interrupted coldly. "Because it sounds exactly like my son and daughter-in-law conspiring to commit elder abuse for financial gain." I reached back into the envelope and drew out a new stack of papers. "Let's talk about finances, shall we? Since Jessica says I've been costing them a fortune." I spread the bank statements across the table. "David," I said, "perhaps you'd like to explain to your family how you've been paying your mortgage on an insurance adjuster's salary?" "Dad, please," he muttered weakly. "The answer is simple," I said. "I've been paying it. $860 a month. 6 months. Total, $51,600. Gasps rippled around the table. "And Jessica's BMW lease?" I continued. "I paid that too, $430 a month. Your country club membership, $1,200 a month. Business loan payments, $600 weekly." I turned my gaze directly toward Jessica's parents. "Robert, Linda, your daughter has been living comfortably off my secret financial support while publicly claiming I was a burden. The total amount? $127,000. Linda's face drained of color. "Jessica, is that true?" she asked weakly. Jessica stammered. "Harold's just confused about—" "I have the records," I interrupted calmly. "Every payment, every canceled check, every wire transfer, all carefully documented. I picked up my phone. Would you like me to call the bank right now? Wells Fargo has excellent customer service, even on Christmas Day. Pastor Williams raised a hand gently. That won't be necessary. Harold, please continue. I smiled faintly. Gladly. Since Jessica and David are so deeply concerned about my financial decisions, I made some of the most important ones yesterday. David leaned forward, panic flashing in his eyes. Dad, what kind of decisions? I've donated everything, I said simply. My entire estate, $3.2 million, has been given to Hartford Children's Hospital. The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the corner. The house, I continued, was sold yesterday to St. Mary's Development Corporation. Closing completed at 4 p.m. The new owners take possession January 2nd. Jessica shot to her feet. So quickly her chair crashed to the floor. You can't do that. That money belongs to the family. Which family, Jessica? I asked evenly. The one that plotted to steal my inheritance and throw me into a nursing home, or the one full of sick children who actually need help? You're senile, she snapped. You can't make legal decisions. I calmly lifted Dr. Martinez's report again. According to this, I'm fully competent to manage my affairs. And I already have. David's voice cracked. Dad, without your help, we'll lose everything. The house, the cars, my business loan. Good. I replied coldly. It's time you both learned to live within your means. I looked around the table. Ellen volunteered at the Children's Hospital for 15 years. She always said, those brave kids deserve better than what adults give them. Today, my inheritance will fund a new pediatric wing in her memory. Pastor Williams smiled warmly. Harold, that's a beautiful tribute to Ellen's legacy. Thank you, Pastor, I said softly. The donation ceremony is scheduled for next week. Local media will be there. It's the largest single contribution in the hospital's history. Jessica sank back into her chair, the realization finally sinking in. Not only had she lost the inheritance, but her entire scheme was now exposed for everyone to see. Robert, Linda. I said, turning to Jessica's parents, your daughter spent 6 months plotting elder abuse while secretly living off the very money she was trying to steal. I thought you deserved to know what kind of person she's become. Robert Miller's face was ashen. Jessica, how could you do this to Harold? He's lying. He's confused. This is exactly what I meant about his mental decline. Jessica snapped desperately. Jessica, Pastor Williams said quietly, we all heard the recording, your own voice describing the plan. I rose from my chair and slowly walked around the table, meeting every pair of eyes. David, you're my son and I love you, but love doesn't mean tolerating your wife's cruelty or your own cowardice. You have 1 week to find a new place to live. Dad, please, David murmured. I ignored his plea. Rachel, Tom, Mark, Susan, you've all witnessed what happened here today. I hope you'll remember this moment when people ask why David and Jessica lost their inheritance. I turned to Pastor Williams. Pastor, would you be willing to speak at the hospital's donation ceremony? I'd be honored, Harold, he said solemnly. Finally, I looked back at Jessica and David. Respect isn't inherited. It's earned every single day. Ellen taught me that. I forgot for a while, but I remember now. I walked toward the front door and reached for my coat. Benjamin Carter will handle the legal arrangements for your departure. I'll be staying at Sunset Manor, near the hospital. I plan to spend my days volunteering with children who truly appreciate kindness. Harold, where are you going? Rachel called after me. I smiled softly. To visit Ellen's grave. I have some good news to share with her. The look on their faces when I revealed the property sale had been worth every moment of the 6 months I'd endured in silence. David's business loan had defaulted, forcing him to close his small insurance office. He and Jessica had moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment in East Hartford, the kind of place David would have once called beneath us just 6 months earlier. Jessica's social media presence had gone silent after the donation ceremony made the local news. It's difficult to maintain influencer status from a rental apartment when you no longer have luxury cars or designer props to show off. Yesterday, Margaret Wilson called to share some neighborhood gossip. Harold, the new family moving into your old house seems lovely, a young couple with twins. They're so grateful for the affordable housing. Much better energy than what was there before. After finishing a story with little Emma, I walked to the hospital's main lobby, where Ellen's memorial plaque hung proudly, in memory of Ellen Davis. Her 15 years of volunteer service reminded us that healing begins one story at a time. I caught my reflection in glass, a 68-year-old man, living comfortably in a senior community, volunteering 4 days a week, financially secure through foresight and discipline, not the senile burden Jessica had tried to portray, and not a bitter old man either. David had called once, 2 days after they'd moved out. "Dad, I'm sorry about everything." "I know, son. Is there any chance of forgiveness?" "Always, David," I said quietly, but not for financial support. He hung up without another word. Respect isn't something you inherit. It's something you earn. And when it's lost, it takes more than apologies to get it back. Emma's laughter drifted from the pediatric wing, pure and full of life. Ellen would have loved that sound. Some endings, I realized, are really just beginnings in disguise.